It's Thursday, November 7th, 2024. Democrats cheer the peaceful transfer of power to literally Hitler. Jack Smith is winding down Trump's federal investigations, and Democrats have boxed themselves into a very narrow corner. Next on the AM Update. Tomorrow is another edition of Ask or Tell Me Anything. You can ask me any question you want. Tell me any news story you think needs covered on the AM Update. You can make your submissions at Real AM Update on X. Look for the pinned tweet at Real AM Update. Always look forward to the Friday edition. But first, Kamala Harris did indeed formally concede. I'm a poet and I didn't even know it. She called Donald Trump yesterday, earlier in the day, to formally concede to the former and now president-elect. And then later in the day at Howard University, this would have been closing in on at least 15 hours after she announced to the crowd on election night that she wasn't going to be speaking, or at least one of her lackeys did. She made this address at Howard University to a crowd of onlookers, including a crying Doug Emhoff, second gentleman, and a crying vice presidential hopeful, now not anymore, Minnesota Governor Tim Walz. Yes, they were both bawling in the audience.
Now I know folks are feeling and experiencing a range of emotions right now. I get it. But we must accept the results of this election. Earlier today, I spoke with President-elect Trump and congratulated him on his victory. I also told him that we will help him and his team with their transition, and that we will engage in a peaceful transfer of power.
Yes. A crowd of Democrats cheering for a proclamation of a peaceful transfer of power to literally Hitler. You cannot make this stuff up. Kamala wasn't the only one to call Donald Trump the other day. President Joe Biden spoke to former President Donald Trump on the phone to congratulate him on winning the presidency. That's according to the White House in a statement. The White House said, quote, President Biden expressed his commitment to ensuring a smooth transition and emphasized the importance of working to bring the country together. Biden also invited Trump to meet with him at the White House. It sounds like Trump will be obliging the current president's offer. It sounds like now it's going to be around 54 Republican senators in the U.S. Senate. It's looking like, depending on the forecast you look at, it looks pretty well set in stone that Republicans are going to maintain a majority in the U.S. House. Not a whole lot of races were called yesterday. The presidential race in Michigan was called. Again, one of the most surprising results, at least for me. I mean, there were about a dozen most surprising results from the other night. But Michigan was called yesterday for Donald Trump. It's looking good in Nevada and Arizona. It doesn't matter now. It's just icing on the cake. There's also this. The Justice Department is looking to wind down 2 federal criminal cases against President-elect Trump as he prepares to be sworn in for a second term in the White House. That's a decision that upholds long-standing policy, apparently, that prevents Justice Department attorneys from prosecuting a sitting president. In making this argument, Justice Department officials cited a memo from the Office of Legal Counsel filed in 2000, which upholds a Watergate-era argument that asserts it's a violation of the separation of powers doctrine for the Justice Department to investigate a sitting president. It further notes that such proceedings would, quote, unduly interfere in a direct or formal sense with the conduct of the presidency, quote, in light of the effect that an indictment would have on the operations of the executive branch. An impeachment proceeding is the only appropriate way to deal with presidents while in office. Former Attorney General Bill Barr also backed the contention Wednesday in an interview with Fox News, noting that Trump takes office in January. Prosecutors will be unable to continue with the cases during his term. So after all of that, man, after all of the lawfare waged by the Biden Department of Justice, it just ends with a whimper. It's incredible. Absolutely. It's nuts. Man, last year, I was like, they're not just gonna say, yeah, they're kind of conjuring weird legal theories up for some of these federal indictments. Really specious applications of the documents case, whatever, the Presidential Records Act. Biden had boxes of documents. We're not going to prosecute him because we feel bad for him, but we are going to prosecute Donald Trump because it's Tuesday. And it's like, man, they're doing all of this. They're not just going to take no payoff. And now here we are, a day after Donald Trump wins a resounding election, as well as still, we think, the popular vote, which that's still looking like a good possibility at this hour. And it just ends with a whimper. Yeah, we're going to wind down the investigation. Jack Smith, totally relegated to the phantom realm, apparently. All right, before we get out of here on this shortened edition, I appreciate you letting me get away with a short edition. Not that much to really talk about other than the staggering results this week, and still trying to get over a little cold and save my voice too. I want to present this tweet to you, and then a couple of other notes. This is from Ari Fleischer, former White House press secretary. Now he's a Fox News contributor. I want to read this post on X for you. Quote, "The groups Harris did best with tell you why the Democrats have big problems. Rich people, those making more than $100,000, went from +5 for Biden to +8 for Harris. The rich are one of the only groups she improved with. Those who never go to religious services were +26 for Harris. Those who say they have no religion were +40 for Harris. College grads were +8 for Harris, and those with postgraduate degrees were +24 for Harris. The Democrat base is college-educated, wealthy, non-religious people. No wonder they're losing Hispanics and working people. They're a party that's increasingly rich, non-religious, and elitist, and out of touch." Again, that's a post on X from Ari Fleischer. I already had that in the rundown for this morning, but one of the listeners, Jay Hinton, sent that to Real AM Update, so I appreciate that, Jay. That's right on the money. So this is not the only column of support for the Democrats, but what Ari is pointing out here is that this is the most rabid support for the Democratic base. This is their core base. This is their central foundational base of support. College-educated, rich, non-religious elitists who are out of touch. That's not a good thing for this country when one of the parties in a two-party system, when their central base is made up of people who don't go to church and really don't have a need to go to church in a temporal sense because they're rich. That's not a good thing for this country. You're always going to have elites in any given society. Always going to happen. The only question is whether or not they're virtuous. And it's increasingly clear on the left, their elites, you didn't need exit polls to show this, their elites are not virtuous. And so they painted themselves into a very narrow corner where their entire platform, their entire party, their entire outlook is based upon pleasing their core foundational base of increasingly rich, non-religious, and elitist, out-of-touch jerks, for lack of better words. There are now a couple of Democrats who are picking up on this. One of whom is Bernie Sanders. Might have heard of him before. He is the Soviet wing of the Democrat Party, who released a statement yesterday. Quote, "It should come as no great surprise that the Democratic Party, which has abandoned working class people, would find that the working class has abandoned them. While the Democratic leadership defends the status quo, the American people are angry and want change, and they're right. Bernie Sanders is right." Now, I've said this, I can't remember if I've said it on this program before, but of all of the people, all of the politicians over the last decade that I've been, neck deep in covering political news, the one that I regret pillorying the most, not really regret, but maybe should have given him a little bit more of the benefit of the doubt, it's probably Bernie Sanders, actually. Bernie Sanders, back in 2015, 2016, lesser so in 2019, 2020, during those Democrat primaries, he absolutely diagnosed a major problem in the United States. That is the marriage of big government and big corporation. Classical fascism. Now, of course, his solutions were always, the government created this problem. We need more government to solve it. That's gonna be a no from me, and it's always gonna be a no from me, because that doesn't make any sense. And I jokingly refer to him as the Soviet wing of the Democrat Party. I believe he and his wife did their honeymoon in Soviet Russia. But he's absolutely right. The Democrat Party, we got to get this through our heads. I believe Donald Trump, based on various exit polls, was like plus 26 with white, non-college educated men. That's a yo. That's a different Republican Party than it was when I was growing up 20 years ago. Completely different. Those types would have gone to the Democrat Party. Democrats used to be kind of, at least around the Bill Clinton time, they were the populist party, but not anymore. Not anymore. So Bernie Sanders, there's one Democrat who says we've got to do something different here. And then there's this from Tom Suozzi. I think he's a New York Democrat who scraped by in his election on Tuesday. He released this statement, quote, "Democrats have to stop pandering to the far left. I don't want to discriminate against anybody, but I don't think biological boys should be playing in girls' sports. Democrats aren't saying that, and they should be." What I saw yesterday was 180 degrees opposite of what I remember the day after the election 2016. What I saw the day after 2016, it was short-lived, but it lasted a good day or so. There was a large contingent on the left, really most of news media, who spent the better part of the day asking themselves, where did we screw up here? Where did we screw up? Are we wrong? Are we actually wrong here? There was some introspection. Part of it was the shock that I think New York Times had Donald Trump or Hillary Clinton with a 92% chance of winning that election. But part of it, I think, was genuine. Now, like I said, it lasted for a day, and then they got back to calling us terrorists and rednecks like the next day. What I'm seeing now is 180 degrees opposed to that. There's no introspection. It's just double, tripling, googling down. Isn't that a number? A googol? Yeah, that's 1 times 10 to the 100th power. They're googling down on racism, misogyny, homophobia, bigotry. That's what they're calling all of us now. Principal Skinner, am I out of touch? No, it's the children who are out of touch. It's the children who are wrong. That's been their reaction now. So, again, just based on the early returns, there's no introspection. Other than like a couple of pockets like with Bernie Sanders. There's by and large no introspection going on over there. Maybe there is behind closed doors. And maybe they're saying we need to completely radically transform. But the problem is there's too much of your caucus in D.C. already that is totally given over to far, far leftist ideologies. You know, Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumers of the world, they're not going to be there forever. They thought they could control this beast. They're finding out they can't. Now, I don't know what the limiting principle would be here. My guess is they're going to try to figure that out. The Hakeem Jeffries of the world, the next generation of leadership, they're going to try to figure out, hey, how much can we rein these people in? Or if we need to, replace them with more moderate Democrats. Because what I'm seeing from their apparatchiks in the media is it's pedal to the metal. Everybody else is wrong. Everybody else is wrong. So if this were 2016 all over again, I'd see reactions from Bernie Sanders and that congressman from New York. I'd give them a little bit more credence saying, hey, they're starting to figure it out here. But based on what I'm seeing from most of their base, all the way down to the granular level, friends of mine who are left, or Facebook friends, I should say, of mine who are lefties, or what have you, going up to their apparatchiks in the media. Nope. No introspection. We're all just a bunch of deplorable garbage people. That's what it is. And so they box themselves into that corner. And I don't know how and when or why they would get themselves out. Because it has this funny way, once the worst tendencies of human nature, once you affirm those, once you inject those into the bloodstream of any group, much less a political party, it's really hard to get that out again. That'll do. I thought I said this was going to be a shorter episode. It's not. Thanks for listening. We'll be back at it again tomorrow. Ask or tell me anything. You can ask me any question you want. Tell me any news story you think needs covered on the AM Update. Make your submissions at Real AM Update on X. At Real AM Update on X. Always look forward to that. Looking forward to talking to you again tomorrow. I'm Aaron McIntyre, and this is the AM Update.